When we think about heart attacks, most of us imagine dramatic events. An older man clutching his chest, sudden pain, a race to the emergency room. Rarely do we picture the slow, invisible march that leads to that moment, and yet, that's exactly what's happening in millions of people every day. The culprit isn't always age or bad luck. More often, it's sitting right there on our plates. The foods we eat, especially the highly processed ones that have become so normalized, quietly and systematically damage the very arteries that keep us alive. Think about what processed food really means. It's food that has been stripped of its natural integrity and then rebuilt with chemicals, preservatives, and additives. It's food designed not to nourish you, but to entice you, to look perfect on a shelf, to last longer than it should, to deliver a quick jolt of taste that keeps you coming back for more. And while it may feel harmless in the moment, a bag of chips here, a frozen meal there, inside your body, it's anything but harmless. Every bite of those foods sets off small sparks of inflammation, tiny fires in your blood vessels that, over time, build into a dangerous blaze. Your arteries are living tissue. They're not just pipes carrying blood, they are dynamic, responsive, constantly adapting to your needs. But when they're bombarded with trans fats, refined oils, artificial additives, and excess sugar from processed foods, they become irritated and inflamed. Imagine scratching your skin in the same place over and over. It swells, it reddens, it eventually scars. The same thing happens inside your arteries. That inflammation makes cholesterol particles more likely to stick, forming plaques that narrow the passageways. Suddenly, the lifeline that delivers oxygen to your heart is compromised. And the worst part, you don't feel it happening. You can be walking around thinking you're fine, until one day you're not. Processed foods are also masters of deception. They masquerade as convenient solutions in a busy world. They tell you they're saving time, that they're affordable, that they're harmless in moderation. But moderation assumes we're in control, when in reality, these foods are engineered to hijack our cravings. The salt, sugar, and fat combinations aren't accidental. They're calculated to keep your brain wanting more. And as the desire grows, so does the damage. Quietly, when most people hear the word sugar, they think about desserts, cakes, candies, ice cream. They don't realize that sugar hides in almost everything we eat today. In cereals, bread, sauces, yogurts, even so-called health bars. It sneaks in under dozens of different names, from high fructose corn syrup to maltodextrin, and every one of those names translates into the same story inside your body. Sugar isn't just a sweet indulgence, it's a metabolic disruptor, and one of the most dangerous ways it sabotages your health is by quietly undermining your heart. The connection between sugar and diabetes is well known, but what's often overlooked is the way sugar sets the stage for heart disease. Every time you flood your bloodstream with a surge of sugar, your body responds by releasing insulin, a hormone meant to move that sugar into your cells for energy. But when this cycle happens again and again, meal after meal, snack after snack, your cells begin to resist the message. The body is forced to pump out more and more insulin just to keep blood sugar in check. Over time, this state of insulin resistance becomes the perfect breeding ground for fat storage, particularly around the belly. And that belly fat isn't just extra weight, it's metabolically active tissue that fuels inflammation, thickens the blood, and puts dangerous stress on your arteries. When we talk about sugar, we're really talking about fire. Imagine pouring syrup into an engine. It clogs, overheats, breaks down. Your body is no different. That constant overload forces your heart to work harder to push thickened, sugar-laden blood through stiffening arteries. The walls of those arteries lose their flexibility, making them more prone to tiny cracks where plaques can form. And it's those plaques, those silent accumulations, that can rupture unexpectedly, causing a clot that cuts off blood flow to your heart. That's how a cookie eaten years ago can echo as a heart attack decades later. There's also a psychological trap here. Sugar gives you a rush, a quick spike of energy, a temporary sense of pleasure. But that rush is always followed by a crash, and that crash leads to craving more. It's not unlike a drug in the way it manipulates your brain chemistry, keeping you tethered to the cycle. So when I say sugar is dangerous, I don't just mean physically. I mean it hijacks your choices, your ability to truly listen to your body. And the longer you stay caught in its grip, the harder it becomes to imagine life without it. That's how people end up normalizing fatigue, weight gain, high blood pressure, or chest tightness. Because the connection to diet is hidden in plain sight. Philosophically, I think of sugar as a false promise. It promises comfort, quick satisfaction, and energy. But what it delivers is depletion, fatigue, and disease. It's like a friend who flatters you in public, but betrays you in private. And when it comes to your heart, that betrayal is lethal. So, what's the alternative? It's not about living a life of deprivation. It's about learning to satisfy your body in ways that don't punish it. Natural sweetness exists in fruits, in vegetables, even in the richness of whole grains. When you replace processed sugar with foods that nourish rather than inflame, your body begins to reset. Insulin levels stabilize, energy feels steady rather than spiking and crashing, and the burden on your arteries eases. This isn't just nutrition, it's healing, and it begins the moment you choose differently. The lesson here is simple but profound. Sweetness should come from life itself, not from substances that erode it. Every spoonful of added sugar is a tiny gamble with your most vital organ. And while you may not feel the consequences today, the damage accumulates quietly, waiting for a moment to reveal itself in the most catastrophic way. If there is one truth I want you to carry from this, it is this. Protecting your heart requires courage, the courage to see sugar for what it really is, the courage to step out of the cycle of instant gratification, and the courage to reclaim your health before the silent damage becomes irreversible. Because your life is worth more than the fleeting sweetness of a snack. Choose the sweetness of health, of vitality, of longevity, because that's the kind of sweetness that never fades. When we think of heart disease, we often picture clogged arteries or high cholesterol, but the story is far more complex. At the center of this story is something many of us underestimate: chronic inflammation. Now, inflammation in the body is not inherently bad. In fact, it is one of our most vital defense mechanisms. When you scrape your knee, the redness and swelling are signs that your immune system has sprung into action, protecting and repairing. But when that same system is triggered not for hours or days, but for months and years, the very process designed to heal begins to harm. And one of the biggest culprits that fans the flames of this invisible fire is the modern diet. Every time we consume highly processed foods, those loaded with refined oils, artificial additives, and preservatives, we are feeding a system that was never designed to handle such substances. Your body interprets these chemicals as foreign invaders, and the immune system reacts, often subtly, but persistently. That low-level, constant immune response is what we call chronic inflammation. Over time, this state damages the lining of blood vessels, making them stickier, rougher, and more vulnerable to plaque buildup. Imagine water flowing through a smooth glass tube compared to one lined with sandpaper. Over years, the latter will collect far more debris. That's precisely what happens inside arteries under the assault of inflammation. And here's the philosophical depth. I want us to recognize food is not neutral. Every bite we take is either a step toward harmony in the body or a step toward conflict. Processed foods, those quick, convenient, ready-to-eat options, promise ease, but they come at the cost of balance. They quietly ignite a war within, one that most people never feel until the day it culminates in chest pain, shortness of breath, or a sudden trip to the emergency room. But it isn't just the physical toll that matters here. There's a psychological component as well. Many people turn to processed foods because they represent comfort, familiarity, or relief from stress. In moments of fatigue or anxiety, it is often easier to reach for a bag of chips than to prepare a fresh meal. But here's the paradox. The very foods we use to soothe ourselves are the ones that intensify the underlying problem. They don't relieve stress at the biological level. They create it. They force the body into a perpetual state of defense, making every heartbeat a little harder to sustain. When you step back and reflect, it's almost as though the body and the mind are caught in a conflict of values. The mind seeks ease and convenience, while the body seeks nourishment and peace. When we choose processed foods habitually, we side with the short-term desires of the mind while betraying the long-term needs of the body. That betrayal doesn't show up immediately, but it accumulates quietly until the balance tips too far. The good news, and I want you to hold on to this, is that the cycle can be reversed. The body is remarkably resilient. Studies show that even after years of inflammation, shifting to a diet rich in whole foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, lean proteins, healthy fats can reduce inflammatory markers in the blood within weeks. That's how powerful the body's healing capacity is when given the right tools. When you replace oils stripped and refined in factories with oils found naturally in olives, avocados, or nuts, the body recognizes them as allies, not enemies. When you trade processed sugars for the natural sweetness of fruit, you're not only reducing the burden of inflammation, you're providing antioxidants that actively repair damage. It is humbling to realize that the answer isn't found in a pill or a supplement, but in the very choices we make 3, sometimes 4 times a day. Food becomes both medicine and message. Every meal communicates to your body, I am with you, not against you. And when that message is consistent, the body responds with vitality, clarity, and resilience. I often think of inflammation as a silent argument happening inside the body. With every poor food choice, we add fuel to that argument, keeping it loud, bitter, and unresolved. But with each nourishing choice, we move toward reconciliation, toward a state where body and mind are no longer at odds but working together. That harmony is what health truly feels like, not just the absence of disease, but the presence of energy, peace, and strength. So the takeaway is this: chronic inflammation is not inevitable. It is not some mysterious force that strikes without cause. It is, in large part, a reflection of what we choose to put on our plates. And the moment we decide to honor the body with real food, we take back control of that narrative. Let this be the reflection you carry with you. Your diet can either be the spark that fuels disease or the fire that forges resilience. Each bite is a choice, and every choice shapes the future of your heart. Choose the foods that quiet the flames, and your body will thank you with years of health you might otherwise never have known. When it comes to diet and heart health, there is one hidden danger that rarely gets the spotlight it deserves: sodium. We all know salt makes food taste better. It sharpens flavor, it makes bland dishes enjoyable, and for centuries, it was prized as a preservative that kept food from spoiling. But in our modern world, where processed and packaged foods dominate the shelf, salt has quietly transformed from a life-preserving ingredient into a life-threatening one. And it isn't the pinch you add while cooking that does the damage. It's the invisible sodium loaded into everything from canned soups and frozen dinners to sauces, breads, and even so-called healthy snacks. The problem with sodium lies in the way it manipulates one of the most fundamental processes in your body: fluid balance. Salt draws water, and when you consume more sodium than your body needs, it pulls extra water into your bloodstream, increasing the total volume of blood your heart has to pump. Imagine trying to inflate a balloon that's already full to capacity. It strains, it stretches, and eventually it weakens. That's what happens to your blood vessels and your heart under the constant pressure of excess sodium. Over time, this leads to hypertension, which is the single most powerful risk factor for heart attacks and strokes. But let's step deeper for a moment. At its core, hypertension isn't just a mechanical issue of too much pressure in the pipes. It represents something more profound: the consequence of imbalance. The body is built on equilibriums. Too much or too little of almost anything, whether it's oxygen, sugar, hormones, or sodium, throws off the delicate harmony on which life depends. High blood pressure then becomes a symbol of disharmony, a physical reflection of excess in our lives. And in today's world of fast food, convenience meals, and dining out, we live in a culture of excess. Too much flavor enhancement, too much stimulation, too much indulgence. Sodium is just one of the ways that imbalance manifests. The psychology of sodium is equally fascinating. Many people don't even realize how addicted they've become to salt. The palate adjusts quickly. The more salt you eat, the more your taste buds demand to be satisfied. Suddenly, fresh vegetables taste bland, simple foods feel unfulfilling, and you find yourself craving heavily seasoned meals just to feel satisfied. It's not unlike the way sugar conditions the brain to expect a certain level of sweetness. Salt hijacks taste perception, so what feels normal is actually excessive. This is why so many people underestimate their intake. They think, I don't add much salt to my food, so I must be safe. But in reality, they are consuming double or even triple the recommended daily amount without realizing it, and the consequences ripple far beyond just numbers on a blood pressure cuff. High blood pressure silently erodes blood vessels, damages the kidneys, weakens the heart muscle, and contributes to cognitive decline. What makes sodium particularly dangerous is its stealth. Unlike chest pain or shortness of breath, hypertension is symptomless. You don't feel it building. You don't see it coming. You can wake up one morning feeling perfectly fine and yet be living with dangerously high pressure that has been silently damaging your arteries for years. That's why it's called the silent killer. But here's where the philosophy of choice becomes so empowering. Unlike genetic factors we cannot control, sodium is a variable we can directly influence. Reducing sodium doesn't require a radical lifestyle overhaul. It requires awareness and intentionality. It means reading labels, choosing fresh foods over packaged ones, flavoring meals with herbs and spices rather than relying on salt, and gradually retraining your palate to appreciate the natural flavors of food. The beauty is that the body responds almost immediately. Within weeks of lowering sodium intake, blood pressure levels drop, blood vessels relax, and the heart experiences less strain. Over time, this translates into dramatically lower risks of heart attack and stroke. I want you to think about this from a psychological perspective. Every time you choose a meal, you're not just satisfying hunger, you're casting a vote for the kind of future you want. Do you want a future where your heart works under constant strain, carrying the burden of choices made in convenience? Or do you want a future where your body feels light, balanced, and resilient? That choice is made not once, but hundreds of times each month in the grocery aisle, at the restaurant table, and in your own kitchen. And here's the irony. When people begin reducing sodium and relying on fresher, more natural foods, they don't lose satisfaction, they gain it. The flavors of vegetables, fruits, lean proteins, and whole grains begin to come alive again. The subtle sweetness of a carrot, the natural umami of mushrooms, the brightness of a lemon, these sensations reawaken when the numbing effect of excessive salt is lifted. In this sense, reducing sodium isn't just about protecting your heart, it's about reclaiming the joy of food in its most authentic form. So I leave you with this thought. Your heart beats 100 zalozen times a day without asking for recognition, without asking for rest. The least we can do is remove the hidden burdens we place upon it. Salt may make food taste alive, but too much of it robs your body of life itself. Choose balance, choose awareness, and your heart will reward you with strength and vitality for years to come.